Hello, and welcome to Elections Today. I'm your host, Stan Johnson. Today we'll be covering a topic important to all of you election judges and clerks. We're discussing Election Day polling place procedures. And for those of you who have served before, we're going to emphasize changes in the law that will affect how you carry out your duties. I have an expert in the studio with me today. Please welcome Stephanie Escobar, a staff attorney with the Texas Secretary of State.
Hi Stan, thanks for having me. Hopefully we can give you some insight into polling place procedures by going to the scene of a mock polling place. We will be going over a lot of the Election Day voting procedures, and there are a number of different ways to vote in Texas. The method you'll use is already determined by the governing bodies of the 3,000 plus entities holding elections in Texas.
Wow, that's a lot of entities. Do they all vote in the same way?
There sure are, but their local elections official will train them on the specific type of system. But they all fall under one or more of these methods, including paper ballots, which are marked and counted by hand at the polling place, optical scan voting systems, in which the voter darkens circles or arrows on a ballot and they are either manually counted at the polling place or automatically tabulated at the polling place or a central location. In some precincts, voters will have access to an electronic marking machine. And finally, many political subdivisions use DRE, or Direct Record Electronic Voting Systems, in their elections. These are voting systems which show the ballot on a screen, and the voter votes directly on the machine, which records the vote electronically.
Now we're going to talk to someone on the scene at a mock polling place to learn more about what really goes on there. I'd like to welcome our first guest on location at the Brighton County polling place, Election Judge Maureen Sindick. Now, what exactly does the election judge do on Election Day?
The election judge is the presiding judge for the election and is in charge of and responsible for the management and conduct of the election at the polling place. The judge designates the working hours and assigns duties to be performed by the election clerks at the polling place. The judge also preserves order and prevents breaches of the peace and violations of the election code in and around the polling place. Hi Maureen, can you show us some of your duties as an election judge? For example, how do you set up the polling place in the morning?
Sure, Stephanie. First, let me thank Stan for having us on the show. I had to get to the polling place early enough to set everything up. I put up the required sample ballot, the voter information poster, and the new voter complaint poster in the area where voters wait to sign in. Then we set out the voting booths. In each booth, we have to put a copy of the voting instructions and the list of declared write-ins, if we have any write-ins. Remember, the instructions must all be in English and Spanish and any other languages that may be required for that particular entity. Then I go outside to post a distance marker. The distance marker sets the point at which no electioneering is allowed near the polling place. I placed it 100 feet from any outside door through which a voter may enter. Stan, I'd like to introduce you and your viewers to some of our dedicated election clerks here in Brighton County. To my right, we have Donna, and to her right, we have Lucy. Election clerks are responsible for performing the duties assigned to them by me as the presiding judge at the polling place. Here is the combination form. You see that it combines the poll list on which we will enter the names of each voter who is accepted to vote, along with the signature roster on which the voter signs his name. It also combines the affidavit of voter not on list and affidavit of voter without a certificate. The polling list faces us and the signature roster faces the voter. It saves us from having a lot of separate forms. However, some entities may keep the forms separate.
This is the list of registered voters. It has the name of each voter for our precinct. We've marked off the names of people who voted early. Sometimes the main office does this before giving us the list. In a primary election, we have two lists, one of which goes to the chair for the precinct convention, and as usual, the other list goes back to the voter registrar. You see that the list has two little indications by some voters' names, an S, which stands for suspense, and or an ID, which stands for identification. These trigger some procedures that we'll show you later.
After the election judge signs these ballots, I place them face down on the table so voters can select their own without revealing their ballot numbers. Stan, we prepare provisional voting ballots separately. After the election judge signs these, we stamp the word provisional on the back. After a voter has marked a provisional ballot, it's then put in an envelope, like this one. Provisional votes are not counted until the voter's eligibility can be verified after Election Day.
Here's the ballot box. Since these optical scan ballots are counted at a central counting station, the box has already been locked. All I have to do is break the seal that secures the slot that allows the voters to deposit their ballots.
Sometimes I'm a judge for my water district's elections. We use paper ballots in addition to our accessible voting equipment, and I have the key to the box. Our boxes aren't pre-locked, but I open the ballot box at the beginning of the day to make sure that there is nothing in it. Then I go ahead and lock it. I open it again when we begin to count the ballots.
Stan, since we are using optical scan ballots here, the procedure will be a little different. When the ballot box is full, or at the end of the day, I will seal the ballot box slot where the ballots are deposited by voters prior to transport to the central counting station. The setting up procedure is somewhat different depending on the type of voting system you use. For the DRE voting system, the process of opening the polling place would be about the same, but it would include a few necessary procedures to prepare the machine to receive votes. The authority holding the election would give us instructions on how to do that. Basically, it involves powering the machines up and running a tape to ensure that there are no votes already in the machine before voting begins.
Remember that all political subdivisions must have at least one accessible voting system in most polling places. Paper ballots will continue to be used, but the local governments must add an accessible voting system for use by voters with disabilities.
Stan, it's almost time for the polls to open, so we're going to take the oath. I swear or affirm
I swear or affirm
that I will not,
that I will not,
in any manner,
request or seek,
to persuade or induce any voter to vote for or against any candidate or measure.
Good morning.
Hi, good
Here
morning.
to take some videos of the voters voting for tonight's news.
I'm sorry, no media is allowed in the polling place because of the rule excluding recording devices, as well as the rule excluding bystanders who have no legal authority to be in the polling place.
You're kidding me.
No.
Man.
Well, that didn't go well. So in a real election, we cannot be filming inside the polling place like we're doing right now.
Right, that's right, Stan. Recording devices are not allowed in a polling place, and only authorized persons are permitted inside a polling place. Authorized persons include voters, election officials, poll watchers, state and federal election inspectors, Secretary of State and staff, interpreters for voters, persons assisting voters, persons accompanying disabled voters, peace officers when summoned or appointed by presiding judge, a sheriff when delivering election supplies, voting system technicians, minors accompanying a parent, students participating in student elections, and student election clerks. You know, Texas law does not authorize the media to enter a polling place.
I understand. The election we're observing today is simulated election that is for instructional purposes only. Let's get back to Maureen at the polling place.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here as a poll watcher for Jim Smith.
Okay. Okay. If you'll go ahead and sign on the signature line. This affidavit affirms that you don't have any cell phone or other recording devices. By the way, Stan, poll watchers are appointed by candidates, political parties, or other political action committees to observe activities in the polling place.
Basically, my duties are to be the eyes and ears for my candidate. According to this poll watcher guides that my candidate got from the Secretary of State's office, I am not allowed to talk to voters. And any problem I see here, I have to bring it to the attention to the judge, election judge, and clerk. I'm going to take note on everything I see here today.
Good morning. I'm here as a
morning.
poll watcher for Pam Beasley.
Okay. Okay, this form looks correct. You and the candidate have both signed it. Now, if you'll countersign it again in front of me. As I told the other poll watcher, this affidavit affirms that you do not have any cell phone or other recording device.
But I do have a cell phone. If I put it away and don't use it in the polling place, am I still allowed to serve?
Yes, as long as you follow the rules.
What are you doing?
I'm marking down your arrival time. The law that allows you to arrive after 7 a.m. also allows you to leave and come back after serving 5 consecutive hours.
Well, I might have to leave to pick up my daughter from school. So could I leave, do that, and then come back and observe the last few hours of voting?
Yes, as long as you've served 5 consecutive hours and we have not begun to count the ballots.
And if I need to step outside for a few minutes to use my cell phone, will that affect my 5 hours time?
No, brief absences do not affect your 5-hour time. You can have a seat here. Voters will soon arrive, so we invite you and the viewers to watch and observe how we deal with different situations and the various categories of voters who come to the polls during Election Day. The first category that we'll see is the ideal voter, whose name is on the list and presents a valid registration certificate.
Hi, I'd like to vote today.
Good morning. Thank you. Let
welcome.
me just look you up on our list. Isabella Schrute.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you still live at 1836 Stephen F. Austin Boulevard?
Yes, I still live there.
Great. This is a combination form. I'm going to write your name on the form
Okay.
and your voter ID, and I'd like for you to sign it right here, please.
Alrighty.
And if
Okay.
you would, choose a ballot. Any
All right.
ballot.
Any ballot?
Any
Okay.
ballot.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
As the election judge said, this is termed an ideal voter. An ideal voter is a resident of the political subdivision who presents a valid current registration certificate and has not moved.
Stephanie, I have an email from a viewer in Mifflin County, and she is upset because she had her certificate stamped with a party name during a primary election.
Sometimes the voter does not want the party name stamped on the certificate, or the voter may not have their certificate. In that case, election officials can give the voter a certificate of party affiliation. Copies of the certificate are in the polling place election supplies. Now we'll show you what happens when a voter shows up who was on the list of registered voters, but who does not have her voter certificate.
Hi, I'd like to vote, please.
Excellent. Do you have your registration certificate?
No, I looked, but I couldn't find it. My name should be on the list.
Okay. Can I see some identification?
ID, can't you just look me up?
I will, but because you don't have your registration certificate, I need to see another form of ID.
Okay. Here's my driver's license.
Okay, great.
The driver's license is the most common form of identification you will see when a voter does not have his or her certificate, but it's hardly the only one. Other valid forms of identification include a form of ID containing a photograph that establishes a person's identity, a birth certificate or other document confirming birth that is admissible in a court of law and establishes a person's identity, United States citizenship papers, a United States passport, official mail addressed to the person by name from a governmental agency, or a copy of a current utility bill, bank statement, government check, paycheck, or other government document that shows the name and address of the voter.
Our next voter has moved within the county and will have to complete a statement of residence form. Stephanie, can you explain what a statement of residence form is?
Sure, it's a form for a registered voter to submit if he's moved within the county.
I'd like to vote, please.
Okay, can I see your voter certificate?
No, I don't have it, but I do have my birth certificate, though.
Okay. Have you moved from 1971 Bullock Road?
Yes, I actually live on Sam Houston Street now.
Okay, hold on. Since you still live within Brighton County, but you moved, you'll have to fill out this statement of residence before you vote.
Okay, what's this for?
Well, this will get your registration updated with your new address. That way, the next time you vote, you'll be able to vote in the polling place that matches your new residence address.
I went to the polling place for my new address, and the judge said that I had to come back here since I wasn't registered at my new location.
See, that's right. Everybody on election day has to go vote at the polling place where they're currently registered, as long as they still live in Brighton County and still live within the local political subdivision that's represented on the ballot.
Okay, here you go.
Thank you. You're going to go here next, but I want you to know that after the election is over, we're going to file this with the voter registrar so that they can update your voter record. And your new residence address will be effective on there 30 days, in 30 days.
Thank you.
What's that number, please? This is a combination form. I'll need you to sign here, please. Here's your birth certificate, and you can take any one of these ballots you choose.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But what if the voter is moved out of the county?
That's a good question, Stan. Let's see what happens.
I'd like to vote, please.
All right, let me look you up. Did you move from 2005 Championship Avenue?
Yes, I live in the city of Mackville.
The city of Mackville is not in Brighton County, it's in Horn County.
So in this situation, the voter used to vote in this polling place, but now she's moved out of the county. Does that mean she can't vote there now?
That's right. The rule allowing a voter to go back to the old polling place only applies to voters who have moved within a county, not from one county to another.
I'm sorry, but since you moved to a different county, you are not eligible to vote here today.
So I'm out of luck?
Well, you can vote provisionally. Your ballot won't be counted, but your affidavit of provisional voter will be forwarded to your new voter registrar so that they can register you in your new county.
I'm disappointed. I really wanted to vote today.
I'd like to vote, please.
Okay, let's see.
What does the ID notation mean by this voter's name?
ID stands for identification. What it means is that either the voter's identification numbers could not be confirmed, or the voter did not provide any of the identification numbers on the voter registration application. So before the voter can vote, she must confirm her identity.
I see an ID notation by your name. That just means that when you registered to vote, the ID numbers you gave for some reason couldn't be verified. So I'll need to see another form of ID before you can vote.
Well, I just came from work and used my ID badge.
Sure, that'll work. Okay.
This is a combination form. I'll need you to sign here and then take a ballot.
Thank you. Lucy, don't forget to enter her name on the list of ID voters.
Okay. There you go.
Okay, let's move on. Our next voter needs assistance with voting.
Hello, I'm here to vote. I am visually impaired and cannot read or mark my ballot. I brought a friend along to assist me. Is that okay?
Sure, that's perfectly fine, as long as the person is not an agent of your employer or of your labor union.
No.
Okay, then yes, she'll be able to assist you in reading and marking your ballot if you're physically unable to do so. Let me look you up on our list. Okay, I'm passing over your card to my right, to Lucy.
Okay, thank you. Sir, are you able to sign your name?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'll just write your name on our signature roster and indicate beside it that you're unable to sign your name.
Okay.
Okay? And here's your card back.
Thank you.
Ma'am, may I have your name and address for our combination form?
Sure. Here's my driver's license. It has all my information on it.
That's good, thank you.
Lucy, let's remember, we'll need to issue her the oath of assistance. I can administer that while you complete her information on the combination form.
Okay.
Okay. If you'll just raise your hand and repeat after me.
Sure.
I swear or affirm
I swear or affirm
that I will not suggest
that I will not suggest
by word, sign, or gesture
by word, sign, or gesture
how the voter shall vote.
how the voter shall vote.
In most cases, each polling place must provide a method for voters with a disability to vote without assistance. This requires that at least one accessible voting system be located in each polling place.
What if a voter with a disability wishes to vote without assistance?
Let's observe that same voter with a disability voting again, this time without assistance. If the voter with a disability wishes to vote without assistance, the election official processes the voter like any other voter. Then the election official or the voter will activate the ballot depending on the system, and the election official will explain the voting procedure, step away, and allow the voter to cast his or her ballot independently and secretly. The local election official will give the judges more detail on the voting equipment.
Next, we will see what role the election workers play when the voter does not need help in casting his or her ballot, but the voter does need help communicating with the election workers.
Hola, estoy aquí porque quiero votar.
Muy bien, yo le puedo ayudar con eso. ¿Tiene su tarjeta electoral?
Sí.
Gracias, un momentito.
Having a bilingual election worker in the polling place is usually required and helps voters who are unable to communicate with the election workers.
So does the election worker go with the voter to the voting booth too?
Generally, no, since election materials in Texas are printed in English and Spanish and additional languages in some Texas counties. The voter can go to the voting booth and read the ballot in the language she is most comfortable with. Of course, if the voter is eligible for assistance, that bilingual worker can also assist the voter in casting a ballot, as long as there are at least 2 election workers assisting together.
Okay, let's go back to the polling place.
¿Y todavía vive en la 783 Trinity?
Sí.
Muy bien. Pásele para acá. Fírmeme aquí, por favor. La señorita ahorita le entrega la tarjeta. Tome una boleta electoral, cualquiera que guste, y pásele al sitio de votación. I told him to go ahead and sign, take a ballot, and to go on to the booth.
The boy can go into the voting booth. He is not a registered voter.
Well, actually he can. Any minor under the age of 18 has the right to accompany their parent into the booth to observe their voting.
As a reminder, children under 18 can accompany their parents into the polling location, and they can even provide assistance. However, if they are not registered voters, they cannot interpret for their parents or anyone else in the polling place. Okay, now we've come to provisional voting.
I'm here to vote. My name is Dee Royal.
Okay, great. Let me look you up on our list. Do you have your voter certificate?
I don't, but I have my passport.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I'm sorry, I don't find your name on our list of registered voters. Are you registered?
Definitely. I moved here a couple of months ago, and I changed my driver's license, and when I did, I also registered to vote.
Okay, let me just make one quick call.
Okay.
Hi. Hey, I've got a voter here that doesn't appear on our list, but she says she's registered. D. Royal. What's your address?
1970 Stadium Drive.
1970 Stadium Drive. No? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I checked with the voter registrar to see if maybe it was a mistake on our list, but the registrar doesn't show you as being registered in the county.
Well, that's definitely a mistake. I know I registered to vote.
Maureen, can you explain this?
I sure can, sure. Ms. Royal, because you weren't on the list of registered voters and you didn't present a voter registration certificate, you'll need to vote provisionally. To begin that process, I'll just need to verify your identity. Okay. This is a provisional ballot affidavit envelope. You'll just need to complete the front of this form. And since she's a provisional voter, you'll still need to complete the combination form.
Okay. Okay, and so next you sign the combination form. And then I'll put your information here, just like any other voter.
The clerk also fills out the voter's information on the list of provisional voters form that shows everybody who's voted provisionally at that polling location.
Okay, and I'll take that from you. Okay, great. Looks like you've completed everything. Now I'll complete this part. You see, I have to indicate the reason you're casting a provisional ballot. In this case, it's because you were not on the list of registered voters and could not be verified by the voter registrar. And now I'll sign this.
A voter would also have to vote a provisional ballot if the voter was not on the list of registered voters and the voter registrar could not be reached, not on the list of registered voters and could not be verified by the voter registrar, not on the list and did not provide certificate or other form of identification, not on the list and registered in another precinct, on the list of registered voters but did not provide certificate or other form of identification, on the list of people who voted early by mail, but voter says that he or she did not apply for nor return the ballot, voting after 7 p.m. due to court order, on the list but registered residence address is outside the political subdivision, shown as having voted in another party's primary, or some other explanation which will be filled in by the election judge. The election officials should put aside a set of ballots for provisional voting. Each one should be stamped or written with the word provisional before the polls are opened. The election clerk will allow the provisional voter to choose one of the provisional ballots.
Now you can choose a ballot for voting. When you're done voting, you'll need to place the completed ballot inside of this secrecy envelope. Then seal the secrecy envelope in the envelope that we just completed and put it in the ballot box or other designated container approved by the Secretary of State. Be sure and follow this procedure because any ballots we find marked provisional that are not in a provisional ballot affidavit envelope will not be counted. There's one more thing. This document informs you that you will receive written notice in the mail as to whether your ballot was counted, and if it was not counted, you will be given the reason.
Hello, I'd like to vote, please.
Okay, let me just look you up on our list here. Miss McCoy, I have the word voted beside your name. That indicates that you've already voted during this election, during early voting.
Hey, what is going on here? I have not already voted.
Okay, hold on. Maureen?
Yes?
Her name appears with the word voted by her name, but she insists that she hasn't voted.
Okay. Ma'am, the notation of voted by your name means that our records indicate that you voted early in person or by mail. Did you request a mail ballot?
No, I didn't. Wait. I may have requested a ballot by mail when my dad was sick because I thought I'd be out of the state. But I figured since I never received the ballot or I never marked it, that I could simply come to my polling site and vote today.
Okay, that's understandable. When the early voting clerk receives an application for a ballot by mail, the clerk is required to mark the voter as having voted on the voter registration list. However, if your plans change and you wish to vote in person, there are procedures to be followed which will allow you to vote today.
Oh, well, thank goodness.
Okay, let me start by confirming with the early voting clerk that she has a mail ballot application from you. Hello, this is the presiding judge from Voting Precinct 101. Do you have a mail ballot application from Sasha McCoy? You do, but no return ballot? Great, thanks. Because you are unable to return the ballot by mail that was sent to you, you have the right to vote a provisional ballot. When you complete the affidavit on the provisional ballot envelope, you will be swearing that you are a registered voter in this precinct and did not vote early by mail.
So does that mean my vote won't count?
Well, when the Early Voting Ballot Board, which is the group that processes ballots received by mail, meets to process your provisional ballot, it will confirm with the early voting clerk that your marked mail ballot was not received. If not, the Early Voting Ballot Board will count your provisional ballot.
Is there any other option?
Well, if you had brought your mail ballot with you, we could have canceled it here and allowed you to vote a regular polling place ballot. Instead, the only other option is for you to go to the early voting clerk at the main elections office and cancel your mail ballot there. They will then give you a notice of cancellation that will allow you to come back here and cast a regular ballot.
Never mind, I'll just vote this provisional ballot. I don't have time to be driving around the world and back.
How would the provisional voting procedure be different if we were using a DRE voting system? After all, there is no ballot to put in the envelope.
The process is generally the same if we use electronic voting equipment or one without a printed ballot. The provisional affidavit is completed as usual, but depending on the voting system, there may or may not be an envelope form.
What happens to the provisional ballots after the election?
Here's why it's so important for judges to pay attention and review provisional ballot affidavits to make sure everything has been properly completed. After the election, officials close the polls. The provisional ballots from all of the polling places are gathered together and taken to the county voter registrar's office. The voter registrar then does two things. First, she determines whether the voter was registered on election day, and second, she makes a copy of the affidavit in order to register the voter or update the voter registration if they're already registered. If the election officials at the polling place don't make sure the voter filled out the registration portion of the provisional affidavit correctly, the county might not have enough information to do its check or to register the voter in a timely manner.
Then what happens?
After the registration office is done, the provisional ballots are taken to the early voting ballot board by the custodian of the election. The ballot board looks at the registrar's determination, but it also reviews the reason the voter was required to vote provisionally. If the judge left the reason blank or filled it out incorrectly, it will impact the board's ability to figure out whether the ballot should be counted. We certainly have seen that problem.
Hello, I'd like to vote today.
Excellent. Can I see your voter certificate?
Oh, I didn't bring that with me today.
How about some other form of identification?
Actually, I didn't bring any ID with me. This was kind of a last-minute decision. Can I just vote?
Well, actually, if you don't have any identification, you do have the right to cast a provisional ballot. Maureen?
Yes.
This lady wasn't able to bring her certificate, and she doesn't have any ID on her right now, but I was telling her that she is eligible to cast a provisional vote.
Okay, that's absolutely true. You can cast a provisional ballot, but if we indicate on the provisional ballot affidavit envelope that you didn't show us any identification, your ballot won't be counted.
Oh, okay. I have my Sam's card in my car. It has my photo on it. Would that work for ID?
That'll work.
Okay, I'll get that and come right back.
Okay,
great.
Hi, I'm here to vote.
Okay, let me look you up. Okay, do you still live at 311 River Road?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Right over here.
Okay. This is a combination form. I'm going to write down your information, then I'll ask you to sign your name if you would. Sign right there for me, please.
My husband also needs to vote, but he has difficulty standing for long periods of time. He's outside in the car and needs someone to come out and help him vote.
Oh, does he need assistance marking the ballot?
Oh no, he just wants to vote in the car.
Well, then I can help him. I can do that myself since he doesn't need assistance.
Thank you.
So proceed to the voting.
Now we're going to explore something called curbside voting. What is that?
In curbside voting, the election official qualifies a voter and brings a ballot to him at the entrance of the polling place or to a car at curbside. Although each polling place is required to be accessible to people with disabilities, The curbside voting procedure provides the option to any voter who may have difficulty entering the polling place to vote in his car. Many of those voters can read and mark the ballot, so they likely won't need assistance in voting their ballots.
I'm still a little confused. So when does the assistance procedure kick in?
Well, if the voter asks for assistance in marking the ballot and is eligible due to the inability to read the languages on the ballot or physically mark their own ballot, then the voter can receive assistance from 2 election officials or perhaps from any person that drove or rode with him to the polling place.
Okay, I'm back. I found my Sam's card. Will that work?
Yes, it sure will. Okay. Donna, if you'll just process this voter.
Alrighty. Now over here.
Okay, this is the combination form. I'll just write down your information. Then I'll need you to sign right here, if you would.
Okay.
Okay, now choose a ballot. And go to the booth.
Okay, thank you.
Now that we have a grasp on dealing with the different categories of voters, let's see how election workers deal with electioneering at the polling place.
Please vote for Jim Smith for sheriff.
Sir, we've had complaints that you're electioneering out here. You cannot be within the distance marker talking about your campaign. If you're not here to vote or to help someone vote, then you can't be within 100 feet of the outside of this building.
Well, but if I move, no one's going to hear me. Man, I know I could be outside the 100 feet, use my bullhorn to get people's attention.
No, you can't do that either. You cannot be within 1,000 feet of the polling place using an amplification device. So you need to move outside of the distance marker here.
Fine, you've ruined any chance I have of winning this election.
It is a Class C misdemeanor to loiter or electioneer for or against any candidate, measure, or political party while the polls are open and within 100 feet of an outside door through which a voter may enter the building in which the polling place is located. Use any sound amplification device within 1,000 feet of the polling place to make a political speech or electioneer for or against any candidate, measure, or political party.
It looks like everything doesn't always go smoothly on election day. What if something else unexpected like this happens?
Well, a lot of things on election day have to be addressed on a case-by-case basis. We have staff answering questions on the toll-free number at the Secretary of State's office during voting hours and even before and after the polls close. Also, the early voting clerk, who is usually part of the main election office staff, maintains office hours all day, as does the voter registrar.
I'm sorry, sir. You won't be able to take that poster into the polling place with you.
Why not?
Because it's so large, it's advertising to everyone.
Yeah, but what about this poster? I've seen people walking in with this all day.
Yes, sir. A voter can take a sample ballot or a small flyer such as that into the polling place with them for their personal use, but something this large is advertising to everyone in the polling place.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Okay, fine, whatever.
Hi, ma'am. I'm going to need you to button up your sweater to cover up your campaign material before you go vote. Thank you.
I see things can get a little exciting at the polls.
Most definitely. In addition to keeping track of electioneering outside the polling place, we also suggest that election workers periodically check the booths during the day to make sure that voters haven't left any campaign materials behind. Sometimes it's hard to see campaign flyers from the election worker table.
So voters can bring campaign materials with them to the polling place?
Absolutely, but only certain materials. Voters are allowed to bring their own materials into the polling place to assist them in casting their ballots, things like a marked sample ballot or flyers from a campaign. They cannot, however, wear buttons or shirts that express a political viewpoint. If a voter came into a polling place dressed like that, the election officials would have to ask them to take the button off, turn the shirt inside out, or cover up the political advertisement in some manner.
I'd like to close today's show with a couple of emailed questions from our viewers.
Sounds great, let's do it.
Okay, here's an email from one of our viewers. What happens if my polling place runs out of ballots? Will I not get to vote?
That is a great question. First of all, turning away a voter for lack of ballots is never an option. Ideally, the workers should keep track of their ballots applied during the day, and if they see that they're getting a little low, call for more supplies. But sometimes you have a problem you just don't anticipate.
Like, I don't know, something happens to the phone and you can't call?
Right. In an emergency, the election judge has the authority to create emergency paper ballots. One way they do this is by using the sample ballots you saw posted to copy new ballots, or even allow voters to use the sample ballot as a guide to mark blank pieces of paper.
Wow, wouldn't a photocopied ballot look a bit fishy?
Well, the judge numbers the emergency ballots and signs the back as usual to show they are from the judge's polling place. And they also make note on the ballot register. We discuss more solutions in the judge's handbook.
Here's another email from a viewer. Philomena from Katy would like you to briefly describe how she should handle last-minute voters.
Wow, another great question. As you remember from the beginning of our show, Election Day polls are open from 7 to 7. Any voter who is in line by 7 must be allowed to vote. If the election is busy enough that you will have people voting after the deadline, you'll need a way to distinguish the folks who were in line in time. Here, we can see the clerk giving them a strip of paper signed by the judge. After the last voter has finished voting, the judge and clerks can shut down the polling place. A large part of this process involves separating out the forms you've been filling out all day to make sure that they get to the right authorities after the election. The ballot box gets resealed for transport to the central location, and you close the polls on the electronic voting equipment. These handbooks are useful for election judges and clerks. They outline many procedures, including setting up the polling place, qualifying the voters, and reporting totals after the polling place is closed. I'd also like to remind your viewers that the Secretary of State's office has an online poll worker training program available to election officials. It's a useful tool for training judges and clerks on the standard Election Day procedures.
Well, we're almost out of time, so I'd like to wrap things up by thanking Stephanie for coming in today. The information you've provided was very informative. I'm sure our election judge and clerk viewers out there are now more informed on Election Day polling place procedures and will be ready to handle any situations that they encounter.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Stan. And I'd also like to thank election judges and clerks throughout our state for all their hard work in conducting elections.
You've been watching Elections Today. Good luck on Election Day.